get started, I do want to give the spotlight to Lisa Molina, who has a quick update about a training that we have coming up.
Yes, thanks, Dylan. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're excited for the upcoming training this month, and just as you are probably aware, you can find that on our website, but we do have our largest statewide training tomorrow from 9 to 11. You can join at any time that fits best with your schedule. Basically, we'll be talking more updates for programming related to concurrent enrollment, as well as other statewide initiatives like direct admissions that we have going on for your students, for your current seniors and future seniors that would apply to them. And then we'll also be talking about ways that students can get credit for any prior learning they've done and the way that our state has standardized that. So for example, your students are doing AP classes, IB, or even CLEPing some college courses to get college credit. You'd want to join us tomorrow to get those updates. We'll always be recording every training and then be able to send that out to everyone that registered. So your registration gives you access to any of the trainings or recording of the trainings, I should say. So yeah, I hope you can join us tomorrow. And we can drop that link in the registration link in the chat as well. Thank you.
And I have done so. So thank you, Lisa. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to that poll. I'm curious to see what we have as a group today. So, welcome to FAFSA Bootcamp on a scale 1 to 5. How are you feeling today? It looks like we've got about a 3.47. So we're fairly better than neutral, which is good. So for those that are maybe not doing as well, hopefully you have a better day. And for those that are doing it great, then awesome. Looking at the next one here, what was your favorite activity you did over the summer? Somebody went to Spain. Wow, that's amazing. Went to Hawaii, the Bahamas, girls trip, swimming all summer. New grandbabies, congratulations. That's so fun. Camping, I went camping too. Let's see, I'm just gonna look at some of these. These are all anonymous, so spending time with family, visiting family, granddaughter, golf trip, fun, visiting friends. Sounds like a great summer for many of you. That's amazing. I had a fun summer too, did some camping as well. It was awesome. So I am curious what our group kind of looks like. So how confident do you feel helping a student and parent create a StudentAid.Gov account, formerly the FSA ID? Looks like we have the majority or half of you are pretty neutral about it. I get that. I totally understand that, especially with this new FAFSA. 35%, that makes me feel great that 35% of you feel somewhat confident. 10% are feeling somewhat not confident, and 10% are feeling extremely not confident. And you know what? I hope for those, that 20% there, after today, you'll feel a little bit better. And through the trainings that you'll be able to feel a little better about this all. So thank you for being here today. So how confident do you feel helping a student complete their FAFSA form? Same, we got about 45% that are neutral, and then we have 25% that are somewhat confident. That's great to hear. And then with the FAFSA itself, it looks like 30% aren't feeling super confident about it. So once again, glad you're here. Hopefully more information to come on those. And let's look at all the responses here. What is your biggest question about the FAFSA? Resources needed to complete the form. Amazing. I should have a handout that will be coming out specifically for that. How can we make the process easier? We will talk about that today. What to do if a student is undocumented or does not have a social security number? We will explore a little bit of that today, more specifically to parents, which covering that. What the new changes are. You don't know what you don't know, it's true. Will it work better this year? I can say most likely we are in a step forward. So compared to last year, we should be stepping forward in a positive and better direction. So will it work better this year? The fingers are crossed that it hopefully, and I have a pretty good feeling it's going to be. So when's the best time to do a FAFSA night? Divorced parents. When will it actually be ready in December? I will talk about a lot of these different things. Etc. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these final ones. What to do when a family gets stuck and can't move forward? It's a great question. Let's dive into this. Thank you for being here once again today as we dive into the Paying for College, or sorry, the FAFSA bootcamp. This is part one. We're going to spend most of our time talking about creating an account because that's probably what we will be focusing on during this fall season until the FAFSA is fully released to all students and parents. So, but I will give some updates here in a moment. So my agenda for today is we're going to talk about some quick updates about the FAFSA for this year of what I know. We're going to learn the basics of financial aid and why high school seniors should file the FAFSA to kind of give those basics. And then finally, we will end with the last major portion of how to help a student or parent create a StudentAid.Gov account and really dive into that. So let's give you the news straight up at the beginning so you have that information. So your learning outcome of this is understand how to navigate this year's FAFSA timeline. So the big news is the 25-26 FAFSA will be released to all students on December 1st of this school year. So that is, I'm very confident in that date. Basically, on the second point here, Federal Student Aid will be conducting testing with some students through October through November for this year to prepare for that December 1st opening. And they're going to be doing that testing to make sure they're catching a lot of the glitches and issues so that it's ready to go on December 1st. So they're taking some extra time to be able to help start this out, which is great. So that's why I feel fairly confident with this December 1st date, because last year we didn't have that confidence. Keep in mind the form itself, like the FAFSA form that students and parents will work on, will probably not have very many changes to it compared to last year. It might look very similar, very, very similar. They may change a couple of things just to help it to work, but they had to do a quick turnaround with this form just because of, delayed time, etc., to be able to get this form out. So most likely they're going to be focusing on changes to updating the StudentAid.Gov account, which they are currently working on language for, and making corrections. And you've noticed as of right now, I've been saying StudentAid.Gov account and not FSA ID. That is a language change that is moving forward. So I'm going to be using that language throughout the presentation and throughout some of the documentations that I have for you all, or handouts for the school year. So keep in mind that that is what is available, and that's what's happening. That's what's changing. That could be subject to change, but as for right now, that's something that is currently being pushed. In addition, some other news. If you are returning from helping students from this last year, the identity verification requirement has been waived for contributing parents or spouses. Basically, what happened this last school year is we had a lot of parents who, so we had a lot of students with parents that did not have social security numbers, and the form wasn't letting them move forward unless they verified their identity. And then at the end of the last school year, they opened it up so that these parents could complete the form without that verification. Basically, that's the same thing. That basically has been waived for this current FAFSA. So students and parents will be able to continue moving forward with completing their FAFSA forms. Keep in mind, I'll dive into more details on this, but that is really good news. We're very excited about that. Coming soon as well, the attestation form to verify the identity of a parent may become available online. So instead of having to email that and emailing their documentation, they may have a portal of some sort to be able to submit that online, which is a lot better than documents floating around through emails. And then there are knowledge-based questions, which we'll talk about, and they are saying that the match rate for those has improved, but it's still not super high in how well it is. So basically those questions that will pop up that most of the time may or may not work. They are doing better with it, but it's not a fully functioning good program. So more details, I guess we'll see. And keep in mind too, we had a lot of students that completed a paper FAFSA back in the spring. Federal Student Aid has finally begun processing those paper forms at the end of July. So that was super delayed. And then not only that, if a student maybe completed their paper FAFSA incorrectly, then Federal Student Aid would send it back to them via email, or not email, by mail. And then the student would have to update and fix it, and then resubmit it by mail again, which is just a long process for everyone. So I do not recommend that students complete the paper form. Do all you can to help them get through the electronic form, but it is a backup if needed. So recommended FAFSA schedule for you all. This is just my recommendation as you're moving forward with helping students and parents fully complete their FAFSA for the year. For the first half of the fall, I recommend going out and teaching your students and parents about different options for paying for college. And that helps both give them the tool belt of all the different ways to pay for college with the information of, hey, the FAFSA is one of those options, right? And that they should complete it. It's recommended. I have a paying for college toolkit that is available. And if you want more details about that, please email me. I'd be happy to give you access or let you find it or help you find it. I also recommend during this time period to help them create a StudentAid.Gov account because it will relieve a lot of headache when they're trying to complete their form. It takes 1 to 3 business days for their identity to be processed with the Social Security Administration. And if they don't have that process, then they can't transfer their IRS tax information to the form automatically. And so it's just recommended because it's quicker, it's easier for them. So if you start helping them now, it'll make things a lot smoother for your events and for parents later on. For the second half of the fall, when the FAFSA is open, I would recommend helping students complete the FAFSA, start preparing events for your school, etc. Yeah. And then when we get into the spring semester after the winter break, I highly recommend that first half to continue teaching about different options to pay for college, especially because scholarships are so heavily available during that time for seniors. And then continue to help students complete their FAFSA during that time period as well, and follow up with them. We had a lot of need for follow-up for students this last year. And so I highly recommend planning that into your schedule of just finding ways to follow up with students to help them either finish their FAFSA or check for errors if it got returned back to them with needed changes, and next steps for how to accept aid and such. And then the second half of fall, that follow-up, of course, continuing that and helping them prepare for their college as they're getting started. In the fall here, some ideas that you could do to help push forward their StudentAid.Gov account creations before the FAFSA opens. You could do some different incentives, like maybe provide extra credit opportunities for students, or maybe some type of attendance record type items to be able to make up any missed days. That could be a great way to incentivize them to create their account. And you can confirm that with them if they have created that, if they did it at home or at the school. You could host different events at the school for students if you want to during the day to get them started on creating their accounts, or after school if you want to get families in. I think one of the hardest parts is parents being ready for the form. So the more you can equip your parents and help them create their account if they don't have one, I would highly recommend doing that. I was thinking of an idea you could do is poll a lot of the parents to see who has or has not created an account, and then really strategically focus on those parents that have not, or maybe have issues. And the goal for all this is that students will be able to have their accounts ready so that they don't have to worry about tax information when filing the FAFSA, because when you have events and other things, or they're at the school, a lot of the time students won't bring their parents' tax info, right? And so it's just good because that alleviates some of that pain. However, I do recommend that they still have access to tax info just in case they need it. Now, this is a highly recommended thing I would recommend for all of you, just because schools that do pair their FAFSA type events with other type events that are going on in their school, there's a difference. I would highly recommend that you push forward with these, just because it really reaches students in different ways. So pairing events with other events, for example, if you're creating StudentAid.Gov accounts right now in the fall, you could pair a lot of your efforts with UCAW, maybe doing paying for college nights or workshops, financial aid themed events or scholarship workshops, if you're doing tabling, etc. It's a great way to pair it. We had a lot of schools from the FAFSA Cup application that we had this last year that actually we're putting information about how to create an account in folders during their UCA or in handouts, just having little bits of it in different places. And it really helps get the word out, gets information out. It's a great way to promote the FAFSA itself, etc. And it just equips the student with more information up front. Because if I remember correctly, for teenagers, it takes like 3 or 4 or 5 times of seeing something before they actually, understand or move forward with it. So with the FAFSA itself, you could try to pair it with different events in the springtime, like the college junior tour, which I know that's the juniors, not the seniors. But you could start preparing your juniors for that information and keeping the hype up with the juniors. Maybe you could have seniors doing different FAFSA type things as well. Decision day or other events or workshops as well. Okay, checking our comments before we move forward. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to answer those. You're welcome to come off mute as well. But I'm going to just keep moving forward because we have a lot of content to review. This next section we're going to dive into is the financial aid basics. So if you've worked in helping students complete a FAFSA in the past, this will probably just be a refresher. I like to provide this, especially to those that are more new, because it kind of gives you an idea of what is financial aid, why do students need access to it, and what are the benefits. So I will dive into this. If you've been to my trainings in the past, you've probably seen a lot of these slides, just a heads up. But the learning outcome I want to bring from this is why a high school senior should file the FAFSA. So first of all, back to the very, very basics. What is the FAFSA? The FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Emphasis on the free, just because there's no obligation if they do complete the FAFSA form, because they can decline all aid and it won't affect them. So, and it doesn't cost to apply. So, and then the FAFSA is a gateway to financial aid and many scholarship opportunities. And yes, it's one tool of the tool belt when it comes to paying for college, but it does link to different parts of the tools. For example, scholarships or working, etc. So it is a gateway, opens a lot of doors, and we recommend students to do it. High school students should start to apply on a normal school year, October 1st of their senior year. This year it is December 1st that we're going to be recommending to push out. So please just use that language of December 1st. And then they will need to complete it if they want aid consecutively for each year of college they are attending. They will need to complete the FAFSA every year. So keep that in mind. And they will go to StudentAid.Gov to apply for the FAFSA. So why should a student complete the FAFSA form? Well, it gives them access to these different types of aid opportunities and some scholarship opportunities. So we're going to dive into these first 3, the federal aid in the green, state aid and scholarships in the yellow, and then in the blue, institutional aid and scholarships. I won't dive into the private scholarships too much, but there are some private scholarships that may require a FAFSA or a student aid index number. They're pretty far, they're not as popular, or there's not as many compared to all the private scholarships that are out there, but there are some out there. So the first one in that green box was federal aid, and it is technically called Title IV federal financial aid. And this is your basics to when it comes to what's being given on the federal level. And the first one is what's mainly associated with the FAFSA is grants. And that is aid that students can qualify for, but they have to qualify for it based on need. And so not all students will qualify. The most common grant you're going to encounter with the FAFSA is the Pell Grant. And the maximum Pell Grant this school year is currently $7,395. And that is subject to change annually. It has been growing during the Biden administration, except for this last year. So that is a constant change, so keep that in mind. Work Study is another program. Work Study is basically an opportunity to work and earn money while they're attending college. That's being partially or mostly funded by the federal government. And there's a lot of benefits to Work Study as well. The one thing with Work Study to note is the student doesn't have to go get a job. And when it comes to their offer letter, they're going to see the full amount that they could qualify for on their work study, but they don't get that up front. They have to work through the semester to earn that amount, and they have a limit of that much. So keep in mind, that's what work study is, but it's a great program. I work study. I had 2 jobs while I was in college as a work study. I did a custodian job working and cleaning the athletic department, which it was okay. It did work outside of my school hours, but my other one that I really loved was I was a TA, or teacher's assistant, for 2 of my professors. And that gave me so many networking opportunities, and it was absolutely amazing. So I would highly recommend work study to your students. And then we have, lastly, federal student loans. And federal student loans, there is a couple of different items surrounding this. But keep in mind, when we talk about loans, I know there's a lot of taboo, and we want to, push all the other ways to pay for college to students before they have to use this as a last resort. But we do want to, those that do end up taking out student loans, we want to make sure they're wisely taking out these loans. So, but with this federal student loans, the most popular 2 types of federal student loans are subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. Basically, subsidized student loans means that their interest does not accrue while they are attending college, at least half time. And if it's unsubsidized, that's the not as good one, where their interest is accruing immediately once they take out that student loan while they're in college. And subsidies are based on financial need as well. So it'll just depend. And then it does depend on how much of a loan that they can take out based upon their situation. So there are dependent students that are required to have parental information on the FAFSA form. And then there are independent students that do not require parental information. And so, and that does affect them, how much they can qualify for. So for example, a dependent student that needs parent info, they can qualify for up to 5,500, with no more than 3,500 of that being subsidized. And then for our independent students, they have a maximum of 9,500. And those are like little details that you don't need to know too much, but it's just to be aware of. Most likely the colleges will adapt that amount to what is needed by the student, so that the student isn't taking out more than they should, if that makes sense. So the colleges are fairly aware of helping students out in that realm. Jumping into state aid, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We'll probably have more information about this later on these different opportunities, but the big 3 examples of state aid are the Utah Promise Scholarship, the Opportunity Scholarship, and the Technical Education Scholarship Program. And all of these have the requirement of a FAFSA, if they can complete that FAFSA form. And if you want to learn more about these, you can go to uc.edu. If Lisa, you want to grab the link for that, that'd be great. If you want to see different items, I don't know when the deadlines are exactly yet, so more details to come just because of the delayed FAFSA as well surrounding these. And then, of course, we have institutional aid. And the colleges provide a lot of scholarships. They have a lot of opportunities for aid and such. And a lot of them utilize the FAFSA in deciding on a lot of these opportunities as well. There are a lot of need-based scholarships out there that are offered and are, based upon the FAFSA itself. And then there's also non-need-based scholarships. So scholarships that maybe just look at the FAFSA, but aren't based upon the need of the student. So these could be like merit scholarships or different private scholarships or departmental scholarships, etc. But there are a lot of opportunities with these. So for example, USU Eastern has over 70 non-need-based scholarships that require the FAFSA. So it's not based on need, and they just require the FAFSA in that process. Another example is Davis Tech. They require the FAFSA to qualify for any scholarship that they provided from their college. And a lot of the other colleges have similar items as well. So it's just recommended to complete a FAFSA so that it opens those doors to those opportunities in their colleges as well. So I mentioned this word, the Student Aid Index Number, or SAI, and this is some details surrounding that. So when a student completes a FAFSA form, they will get an SAI. And this SAI, or Student Aid Index Number, is what is used in the calculation of what is based on need, basically, for the student from the college. So the colleges will take this SAI that they receive from federal student aid of the student, and they'll calculate that with their cost of attendance, sorry, and they'll subtract that from the student aid index, and then they'll also subtract that out of the student's other financial assistance as well. And that's where the college will find the need, and then they will provide an offer letter with the different opportunities that are available to that student on what they qualify for. An SAI could be anywhere between negative 1,500 to 99,000, right? Any student that has an SAI of 0 or below automatically has full access to a full Pell Grant and other need-based aid opportunities, of course. Now, above a 0, they will still have access to Pell Grant, but it might be a partial Pell. And it's kind of like a sunsetting. So the higher their SAI is, the less and less that their Pell will be until at some point they no longer qualify for just Pell Grant. However, they could still qualify for aid, you know, from their colleges or from the state, etc. Students with an SAI, oh, I already got that. So most financial resources require the FAFSA, so it's just recommended. So let's do a quick quiz. If you can grab this little QR code, I will also grab the link for it here and drop it in the chat. I'll go back to that QR code so you can see it. Here's the link to the poll. Go ahead and open that and take a quick second to look at that. Just a couple of questions there. I might just open it to see what live stuff is going on. Oh, there's that QR code if you need it as well. I don't know if that, well, that's really big. If there's any issues as you're trying to complete this poll, please let me know. Yeah, look at that. Something happened. There we go. We got one response. Awesome. I'll give you just a couple more seconds to finish that poll. Here's the link again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward just because of time. Why should a student who thinks they may not qualify for aid still file the FAFSA? 100% of you said because even if they don't qualify for Pell Grant, they may still have access to Pell Grant or other types of aid or scholarship opportunities. So great job on that. Next question, when does the FAFSA normally open? Got a lot of great answers. Technically, the correct answer here is October 1st. That's when on a normal school year, but this year is an odd year when it's going to be open December 1st. So kind of a trick question there. Sorry about that. Which of the following 8 opportunities require the FAFSA? Pell Grant, yep. Let me see if I can show correct answers here. Work study is a yes there. Subsidized student loans. All institutional scholarships, not all of them, but some might require it. All private scholarships, nope. It just depends on some of them. The Utah Promise Scholarship does require it. The Opportunity Scholarship does require it. Concurrent enrollment does not, and neither do 529 education savings plans. So good job, everybody, for the majority of you that got those right. And then what is the maximum Pell Grant for this school year? Good job to the majority of you who put 7,395. Kind of a hard thing to remember because it's a very specific number, but good job. Okay. So what if the family doesn't believe they qualify for anything on the FAFSA form? Number one, you never know if a student will or will not qualify for aid. So you shouldn't assume presumption, biases we want to stay away from. So just do your best to just recommend it. And Joel, I just see your question about Max Pell. That is for the full year. So yeah, good question. That 7,395 is for the full school year. Another reason why, how to help a family that doesn't believe they qualify for anything on the FAFSA. Completing the FAFSA itself does not negatively impact the student or their family It's free to fill out. There are no commitments that are required, and the student or family can decline any amounts of aid. They can decline student loans, they can decline even the Pell Grant if they wanted to. So the only thing it does take away from is a little bit of time to complete it. Another thing is you are teaching a skill and a resource that can be used in the student's future. So even if they don't utilize it immediately, they may utilize it later. I didn't qualify for Pell Grant, but then when, later in my schooling, I finally got married, and then I did qualify. And so, I wouldn't have ever known that unless I had completed the FAFSA before or was taught about the FAFSA. Access to the FAFSA remains available whenever the student needs it. So keep in mind, a lot of things happen that change. Student circumstances often change. Parents could lose their jobs. That directly affects the student situation, and they could qualify for aid. Same with parental divorce or separation. If the student even gets married, like I mentioned, or if they have a child or they have a dependent, etc. Another good thing is to keep in mind is as you're educating these students about this information, you're also educating the parent. And so they may be able to learn about this info and be able to apply it to any maybe younger children or family members, etc. In addition to this, after completing the FAFSA form, the student's information will be saved for future FAFSA forms. I'm not 100% confident on that just because I don't know how this new form is going to be. So that could be subject to change. But in the past, that's normally how it was. And then in addition to that, you only need to create a StudentAid.Gov account once. And so with that, that's probably one of the hardest things to get students past is that creating of an account. And so once you've helped them create that account, usually you've helped them through the hardest part. So that's another nice thing, which they can utilize later. And also the aid from the FAFSA serves as a backup just in case the student doesn't qualify for different types of aid or scholarships. It does give them access to those student loans, which is a viable backup after all their other methods of paying for college have been exhausted. Many students may end up taking out student loans, and we want to make sure, like I said before, that they are wisely taking out those student loans. They are not taking out too much, so they're not building that. And lastly, it's a gateway to financial aid and scholarship opportunities.
So Dylan, we have a quick question in the chat. I just wanted to verbalize it for everyone. Is the max Pell Grant per year or per semester?
Yes, and that max Pell Grant is per year.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
that'll be split in half per semester, or if the student needs some of that aid for the summer, it might be split up that way, depending on the college. Great question, thank you. Okay, we're gonna dive now and spend the rest of the time in.
Test.
Oh, hello. We're gonna go ahead and jump in and spend the rest of the time in creating a StudentAid.Gov account. So the learning outcome here is just basically how to help a student and parents successfully create their account. And we're gonna dive into it pretty heavily. So especially with some of the issues we encountered this last school year. First off, as an introduction here to this, creating an account is the biggest hurdle for students and families when completing the FAFSA, or at least that's what we've seen. And so we recommend that you help and spend time with these families because they may encounter glitches, web page timeouts, frozen web pages. It may not just let them move forward. I literally was on the phone was it yesterday? Or no, maybe the day before, with a student who they created their account, but when they tried to log in, it just gave them an error and it couldn't be fixed. And I spent an hour with her on the phone, just trying to help her get past it. And we could not find an answer. So I'm still looking for an answer for that. So just know, students and parents are encountering that. And they may be pretty frustrated through a lot of that processes. So, and other students and parents may never encounter any of that ever. So it's just really interesting how this all is set up. Last year, we encountered significant changes for parents without a social security number. Some of them were never able to create an account until later. It was just they were stuck and it wouldn't let them move forward. And I don't think we'll encounter that with this new waived student identity verification processes. So keep that in mind. It should be better for those parents this school year. So who needs to create an account? In the FAFSA, the terminology is called a contributor, and this is anyone that needs to provide information on the FAFSA form. And so this is the student themselves. If they're married, which you probably won't encounter since you're working in the high schools, but it is possible, their spouse. And then if they're a dependent student, their parent and other parent, if needed, just depending on their scenario, excuse me. So a contributor is the student filing the FAFSA, like I said. And then when it comes to parents, it's biological or adoptive parents. So no one outside of those four type of people should be putting their information on the FAFSA. If this biological or adoptive parent, the main parent, if they're remarried, then we also need to include the step parent and not the other parent. So that's who the contributors would be. Now, contributors are not, and we would never insert these people on the FAFSA form. Grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, brothers or sisters, aunts or uncles, or any other person. It's just the student. If they're married, their spouse. If not, then their parent, if applicable, and it has to be a biological or adoptive parent, not a legal guardian or a foster parent. And then their spouse as well, if that's a step parent or if they're biological or adoptive parent as well. Now, there are scenarios. Oh, yes, Wendy.
Quick question. Sorry, I apologize. So you said parents. So if parents are married, it's just the one parent, but if they're divorced, then it's both parents need.
So yeah, we'll get into that. Let's see if I have it on here. Yeah, I've got it. We're going to dive into a little more detail.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. No, I love it, Wendy. So in situations of divorce or separation for parents, Federal Student Aid has defined the FAFSA parent the student will insert on the FAFSA as the parent who has provided the most financial support to the student in the past 12 months. We will only use that parent. So if they are separated or divorced, that's the route we will go. Keep in mind, the terminology of financial support is very vague. So please do your best to support the student in whatever situation they are in. So, but that's kind of what they've labeled as who would be the FAFSA parent in those type of situations. Now, in situations where both parents provide the exact same amount of financial support, but they are separated or divorced, then Federal Student Aid says the backup to that, which is pretty rare, is the parent with the one that has the highest income or assets. So, but like I said, financial support could mean a lot of things. It could mean the house they live under, right? It could mean a lot of different things. The food that's provided to the student, transportation. Anyways, so that brings up the question, do both parents need to create an account and sign the student's FAFSA? Well, it depends. And this is where it's kind of split up. So situations where both parents technically would need to create an account and sign the FAFSA would be if they are unmarried and living together, because their tax, how they complete their taxes is separate. If they are married or remarried and have filed taxes as married filed separate, once again, we're leaning back to the taxes. If it's separated, then we need both of them to confirm their taxes on the FAFSA form, if that makes sense. Now, situations where we only need one parent to create an account and sign the FAFSA is basically those that are, if they're a single parent and they've never been married, and we just have the one parent, that's the contributing parent, then that one parent will do it and they've never remarried, just them. If the parents are married or remarried and they file their taxes as married filed jointly, which is the most popular one that you'll probably encounter, technically only one parent needs to sign off on both parents' taxes because it's joint, it's together, right? So only one of them needs to sign off on that. For divorced or separated parents that has not remarried, then just one of them will need to do it, and it's whoever's the contributing parent. And then lastly, the widowed parent, if you're in with a situation of a widow parent, you'll just use the one parent's information. Now, there are situations where, parents were married, but are no longer married, and their tax information shows as married, filed jointly, but they're not. Those are different things that you'll probably have to dive into when learning about the FAFSA form itself and how to process that. So I had an interesting situation. Actually, I think it'll come up in one of our questions. So we'll talk about that later. So let's do a quick scenario to kind of test this out. So meet Anna here. Anna is a senior, and feel free to open this QR code if needed. Let me grab this thing. Here's the link. I'm gonna drop this in the chat for Anna's scenario. Anna is a senior in high school who plans to attend college in the fall of 2025, which should be the majority of your students. Anna's parents are divorced. Anna's mother lives in a different state and does not provide financial support. Anna's father, stepmother, grandmother, and older brother all live in the same house as Anna, who is considered a contributor in Anna's scenario. So I'll just leave this up for a second as you're filling out that form. And we're looking for all contributors. Check how we're doing on this one. Refresh this. Awesome. So the correct answers here as they're coming in, and sorry, I'm gonna have to rush these just because we are low on time. The correct answer to this would be Anna herself, Anna's father, and Anna's stepmother. Those are the three people that we would be considered the contributors on the student's FAFSA form. We would not include Anna's mother because this is a divorced situation, and Anna's mother does not provide any financial support. And then we do not include Anna's grandmother or older brother as well. So good job. If you need, or if you have questions surrounding this, please let me know. And we can talk about it if you want more details surrounding that. But let's dive into the creating of the account here. So I'm going to give you a quick preview of it. I'm going to dive in here. I don't recommend doing this just because you don't want to create a fake account accidentally. But I'm going to create an account for our good fantasy friend, Harry Potter. We'll see if the website's working today. There we go. So you'll just go to StudentAid.Gov. You can even search on Google StudentAid or federal student or StudentAid.Gov account creation or FSA ID. They still have that language up currently. But you'll click on start an account. As you can see here, there are 7 different steps to creating an actual account. It's going to ask for their name. So we'll just do Harry Potter. As you can see, I've kind of done this. You're going to see my info, which is awkward. That's okay. I'm just going to say the first, is it 2004? Can't remember what years our seniors' birthdays. I'm not 100% sure. It's okay. And then it's going to ask for the social security number. Now, if they don't have a social security number, this would be specifically for 2 different groups. If the student is a citizen of a freely associated state who needs to complete a FAFSA form online, those are like those from Micronesia or some other freely associated states within our country. So just keep in mind that's one group of students. The other is a parent or spouse of a student who is applying for aid. And this one's a little more rare of those that are from a freely associated states, but you're most likely going to encounter any parents or spouses of the student. So then you check, I don't have a social security number. Click continue. You will give a warning, making sure that it's only these 2 groups that are clicking that they don't have a social. And then they will move forward if they don't have a social. We'll create an account. Gmail.com. Let's see. So then they've created their username and password. At that point, make sure that they write down their username and password because it will be needed once a year. And I don't remember my passwords a year later, right? So make sure they're writing it down. My parents always kept my login info with my taxes or with their taxes. So it was in the same place for each year. Let's just do 1, 2, 3. Let's do Salt Lake. And then they can do mobile access or they cannot. It just depends. You don't technically have to do mobile access. I recommend it just because it gives the student access to be able to just log in with their phone. because it sends a verification code every time that they log in, and they will have to confirm it. If you're at an event and you're in a brick and mortar, school that has troubles getting access to, cellular data, it might be a good idea to skip that and add it later if you're noticing these issues. I'm not going to put the mobile phone in for now. I'll put a state in. There is an invisible timer on here. Oh, look at that. We are countering an issue already. There's planned maintenance. So it won't let me move forward. Let's see if it'll let me move forward at all. Nope. So other than that, you'll jump in the communication preferences, which will ask about email and such, how they want to receive communications from federal student aid. It will ask about challenge questions that they'll fill out, and then they'll confirm and verify. So that's basically setting up the account itself. Going back to the presentation. A couple of things from this, if I didn't cover it already. Although anyone without a social security number can create an account, this should be only used for those that are citizens of freely associated states who need to complete a FAFSA form online, or parents or spouses of the student who are applying for aid. Great question. I'm just seeing these in the chat. Will there be a video on step-by-step on how to create a StudentAid.Gov account? Probably not from here. I think this will be your step-by-step on here, but Federal Student Aid might provide it. They've had one in the past. I'm not 100% sure though. I don't know if that's on their priority. So keep that in mind. You may get most of your experience helping students and with learning that, but yeah. So you can go for part of the way on here as you saw I did, but don't ever click that you agree to the terms and move forward. So great question. Okay, Melinda said, is the challenge questions the usual 3? I think there's 4 challenge questions, maybe 5. And they will have ask, you click on one of the questions and you answer it, and you can write it down. I have a handout which has a place to write down a lot of this info, and I'll show you later. So account creators will need to use a verified email. So since you're working in the high school, students with those emails from the high school, we don't want to use those. We want them to use one that they're going to take into college, because they lose access to that email at the end of the school year, right? And this is a 5-year type thing. So make sure they're using a verified email that's not their school email. Sorry. Go back up. Cell phone is optional, like I said, but it is recommended just because it makes it easier to log in. So once you move past that, they will need to verify if they put their cell phone number, and it'll send a code to them, and they'll need to type that in to verify it. And they'll also have an email. A troubleshooting thing that we commonly encounter with this is the codes don't come. And sometimes they take 5 minutes to come. So keep in mind that there is that invisible timer on the website. So make sure they're moving the mouse or clicking in random places while they're waiting for that code, because it could reset them. And they have to start from the very beginning all over again. So they can also use the Authenticator app, which is a great way to get logged in. And it's recommended, but not required. Each student will get a backup code. I highly recommend that they take a picture of this or write it down somewhere in case they're having any issues logging into their account, because this will give them access at least one time. So, and then they can edit any information once they're in. It's great for emergencies. So yeah, highly recommended. And then once they're done, it'll take 1 to 3 business days for those that have social security numbers to verify with the Social Security Administration, and then it'll transfer their tax information over to the FAFSA like that. You won't even see the questions on the FAFSA form, which is super nice. And this is why we recommend that they do this early on. Otherwise, if not, then they will, I think I talked about this too. Yeah, if they don't, then they will have to manually insert their tax information on the FAFSA form if they're still waiting for their identity to be processed. Parents that do not have socials, they're going to have to manually insert their tax information no matter what. So they'll need to, it'll just have them move forward. They won't have to wait the 1 to 3 business days if they don't have a social security number. question came in, since taxes are based on 2 years prior, is there anything a student can do if their parents made good money on their taxes for that aid year, but they're currently out of a job or aren't making as much now? Yes. I recently had a situation that I talked to a student about, who they just mentioned on the side note that their parent can't work this year. They're out of the job due to surgeries and different things. I told them, go talk to the college, and for a professional judgment or for an unusual circumstance, not unusual, a special circumstance, because they had a major change in income since that, prior tax year. And the student is now qualifying for some aid. So yes, they can do that, but they will need to do that through the college, not through federal student aid. If their parent doesn't have a social security number, did you say that they will have to manually enter taxes no matter what? Yes. Great question. So if they do not have a social and they're a parent, they will have to manually insert their taxes no matter what. So in your communication sending out to parents, make sure you're informing that they might need to bring their tax info and that they should, especially if they don't have a social. Good questions coming in. Okay, how we doing on time and slides? We're getting close. Let's see how fast I can get through some of these. So parents, this is kind of the process like we talked about. The students and parents will start. If they have a social, then it'll go through this match with the Social Security Administration, and then it'll confirm their identity. If they're having any issues, they may need to work with this Social Security Administration to fix that. If they don't have a Social Security number, then they will complete knowledge-based verification questions, which I'll show you them in a minute. And if they don't pass those, then they'll need to do ID proofing. Now, I know I mentioned that this process has been waived, but I still recommend that they try to verify their identity, because in future years, they may have to. And if they don't, their student may not qualify for aid. So if they can fix this or kind of get through it now, awesome. If it's too much of a hassle, move forward, right? And not worry about it. So do your best I recommend that they try to do it, but it just depends. These are what the knowledge-based questions kind of look like. They are multiple choice questions that are pulled from TransUnion, credit union type different places to get information about the parents. So for example, what is the following street name for your most recent previous address? And then they click the one that's correct. Now, if they get one of these wrong, then it doesn't work. Then they have to go and do their ID proofing with their attestation form. This will just scroll down with some different items here, but they're basically multiple choice questions. If they got all these right, awesome, they're good to go. They can move forward. If they don't pass those questions, and a lot of parents may not even have those questions show up. Like I said, that matching rate still isn't super well. So what's going to happen is they're going to get an email from Federal Student Aid with a case number and an attestation form. This attestation form, you can look it up online to see what questions they have and what documents are required. But they'll have to go through and provide different documentation that looks like this. They'll need to have one of the following forms of ID, like a driver's license or foreign passport, or they can use like a utility bill and one of these other forms of ID. If they don't have any of those, then like I said, it's been waived, so they can move forward still. But in future years, they may not be able to. And if they have any issues or they do not receive this case number, they can call Federal Student Aid's Information Center at this number to get that attestation form. And it looks like Lisa has put the form in the chat, so thank you, Lisa. If a parent doesn't have a Social Security number and cannot verify their identity, we've talked about this, it can be waived for the school year, so I'm not going to dive into that, especially because we don't have time. Some best practices as you're working with parents that may not have Social Security numbers. Use universal language. This universal language is good for all students and parents, and it gives that information up front, specifically because we can't directly ask about their citizenship. So let's say you're in a meeting or you're in a classroom and you're giving a brief overview of the FAFSA itself. You say the FAFSA is a gateway to college aid and scholarships. To qualify for aid, the student and parent and required parents must create a StudentAid.Gov account, log into this account to transfer tax info, and sign and submit the FAFSA form. To make sure you're being inclusive with that universal language, for parents without social security numbers, you can add parents are not required to have a social security number to create an account. If you need more information, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to give you more information. And to also include those that may not be eligible to file the FAFSA, because if a student doesn't have a social, then they are not eligible to complete the FAFSA form. And so you can add something like, remember, not everyone is eligible for aid from the FAFSA. To be eligible, applicants will need a social security number. If you do not have a social security number, there are other ways to get aid and find ways to pay for college. Come talk to me for more information. And then they'll come talk to you if they'd like to have more details on this information. And that kind of gives them an opportunity to come talk to you as well. And then have some of those resources available in your back pocket. Just a couple of things surrounding parents that don't have social security numbers. If a student is a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen, but their parents don't have a social security number, they do qualify for aid. And if the parents are a little hesitant about sharing their personal information on a federal form, which is completely understandable, please share that the FAFSA data is protected, it is encrypted by federal law, and it prohibits any use of the FAFSA data except to calculate federal student or federal and state financial aid. And I've got some links here that you are welcome to share out to parents regarding that specific language and information if they're hesitant. Thank you, Lisa. The goal would be to keep students' status confidential and asking for the permission to bring in others into the conversation. If a parent is hesitant about revealing their information on the FAFSA, you can reassure them that the Department of Education does not share this information with immigration or custom enforcement agencies. Let them know that that information, like I said, is encrypted. So if it were to get leaked out, it'd be all scrambled, right? And nobody would be able to understand it. If they have an ITIN, which is an individual taxpayer identification number, which is given to those that don't have a social security number when filing taxes, technically the IRS already has most of the information they would be inserting on the FAFSA. But ultimately, if they're not comfortable doing this electronically, they could submit that paper FAFSA. But as you know, there's a lot of delays with that. So just prepare for that as well. And we don't have time for this quiz. Well, maybe we do. Let me give you some resources first, and then we'll do the quiz as a final last thing. So we have a lot of resources on Lisa and I's webpage for UCOT and FAFSA. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that because I have a current new handout that has the new language for the StudentAid.Gov account creation language instead of FSAID on our website. So what you'll do is you'll go to our ushi.edu website, and Lisa, if you wouldn't mind dropping this in the chat, that'd be super great. And you'll just hover over initiatives, go down to K-12 outreach and find Utah College application and financial aid resources. And Lisa also dropped it in the chat. And down below this QR code, there's my FAFSA resources here. The only one I have available, which is the updated, is the StudentAid.Gov account setup. And you can click on that, and it has all the updated language and items for helping a student to create an account. It's similar to last year's, but it does have some updated items and language changes. And as you can see here, there's even a place that they could save their information. And I made it so it's a cutout if they want to cut it out or just keep the whole paper. And yeah, so there's your resource for that. And then, of course, we've got trainings and such coming up. If you want access to the Paying for College toolkit, that is also on that same webpage. Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up with this final support. I'm here to help you. If you want to stick around for 1 or 2 more minutes, I'm going to do the poll. If you want just a little extra, double check your answers with what you've learned. But please reach out to me if you have any questions. And yeah, that should be all. So I'm going to go back to that poll if you want to grab it. But if you need to hop off, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Sorry, I'm moving things around. I'm going to copy the link for this poll and drop it in the chat. Refresh things. Okay. And this is just good practice if you are sticking around. Oops. Hey, thank you all for those that have to hop off. I appreciate your time. Yes, Deborah, I will be sending a copy of the presentation along with a recording and some other resources for you after I get everything downloaded for the recording. So, and hopefully you got the one for yesterday. If you didn't, Deborah, let me know. Awesome. Ooh, we got a response that's coming in. Amazing. And if you have any questions about your FAFSA nights, if you're the one in charge in your school, please email me. Happy to answer any questions, etc. It's great. Got 8 responses so far. I'll give you 10 more seconds to hurry and answer. So answer quickly. Okay, I'm going to start moving forward. So who should create a StudentAid.Gov account because they are considered a contributor? We've got students with social security numbers, students without social security numbers, parents with social security numbers, parents without, and then we have grandparents, siblings, foster parents, or anyone who wants to. And the correct answers here are students with socials, parents with socials, and parents without socials. Students without social security numbers, they will not be eligible for aid from the FAFSA. So that is not one of the contributors there. Who is considered a contributor on the FAFSA form? Still answers. Students filing the FAFSA, student spouse, and our uncles, brothers, sisters, legal guardians, biological or adopted parents. If a biological or adopted parent has remarried, then their spouse, foster parents or grandparents. Looks like the majority of you got these right. Keep in mind, legal guardians. If a student is in a legal guardianship, they are automatically an independent student, so they will not need parental info. So, not legal guardians. So here's your correct answers. So basically, you all got it right, except for that legal guardian one. What kind of email should a student or parent use when creating their account? A verified non-school email, 100%. Great job, everybody, on that one. What situations would require both parents to log in, provide consent, and sign the FAFSA? A single parent? No. Unmarried parents living together? Married or remarried that have filed jointly? Married or remarried that have filed separately? Divorced or separated parents that has not remarried? Or widowed parents? And the correct answer here is just these two. So this is those situations where both parents have to create an account. They both have to log in, confirm their tax info, and sign the FAFSA form for the student. And that would be unmarried parents living together. And those parents that filed, if they are married or remarried, filed separate. Those are the only two. Every time else, you only need one. And how many days does it process the new StudentAid.Gov account? 1 to 3 business days, as last I heard. So it could be 3 to 5 business days. So those that put that, I mean, it's a possibility, but from what we've been told is 1 to 3 business days is the correct answer. And our last question, Katie's father already has a StudentAid.Gov account and has tried to log in 100 times, but every time has an issue and can't log in. Katie says that they've tried all the different things and they're asking about if they should or should not create a new account. Are they able to create a new account? And this isn't paraphrasing because the question isn't up there. The correct answer is no, they cannot. Because once you create an account, that's basically with you for life. So even parents that had created an account when they went to college and now they're doing it for their students, they can't create a new one. They would have to figure out how to get access to their old one. And one of those ways is just by calling Federal Student Aid's Information Center or their hotline to see if they can get access. So good job for you, 84% that got that right. Awesome. Kate, that is all I have for today. Thank you for being here. Like I said, my resources are available and I'm here to support you during this time. So have a good one. Closing out the meeting. Thank you for helping, Lisa. Of
Yes, of course. Happy to help.
course.